Welcome to a new series where we're going to be covering legendaries from Destiny 1. Today we're going to start out with some hand cannons. Aya's Luna dropped randomly at the end of Crucible matches. This weapon was almost considered like a little Hawk Moon, and it could actually roll with the perk Look in the Chamber. This allowed one random bullet in the magazine to deal extra damage, just like the Hawk Moon in Destiny 1. Next up we've got Her Mercy, and this would actually drop from Prison of Elders. I've always liked the design of the Queen's weapons, and this hand cannon is no exception. Then we've got the Imago Loop. Now this is akin to the Fatebringer, and it could actually roll with Firefly and also Outlaw, making this essentially the Fatebringer 2.0. Finally, we have the Devil You Don't. This weapon was sometimes sold by the Vanguard Quartermaster in the tower. Today we're going to be covering some legendary auto rifles, so the one you're seeing on screen is called the Does Not Bow, and this was a Fallen themed auto rifle. I completely forgot how strong auto rifles were in Destiny 1, but as you can see from the gameplay, these things are absolutely shredding. Next up, we've got the Antipodal Hindsight. You probably recognise the style of this weapon, and that's because you can actually buy it from the Crucible Quartermaster. Then we've got a Dead Orbit themed auto rifle called the Extremophile. Now personally, I was always New Monarchy, so I never actually got this weapon. Finally, we've got the Zaraneer D, which you could actually buy from Banshee. When auto rifles were strong in PvP, this was a really good pick. As you can imagine, there's a lot of legendaries in Destiny 1, so if there's any specific ones you want me to cover, then please leave a comment and I'll add them to the list. Anyway, thank you for watching and goodbye. Midas Reckoning was a Taken King fusion rifle that dropped from the King's Fall raid, and I do quite like this weapon's unique aesthetic. Next up, we've got the Rise of Iron hand cannon, the Lingering Song. Now, this weapon actually sounds really cool. Then we've got a scout rifle called the Hero Formula, and from time to time you can actually buy this from the Crucible Quartermaster. Finally, we have the Wormwood. Now, this sidearm absolutely dominated in PvP, and if you had the right roll, this thing was an absolute beast. As you can see from looking at the weapon, you can actually get this from the Future War Cult. Anyway, at the end here, I just wanted to say thank you for 5,000 subscribers. The channel is growing really fast, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. In this video, we're going to cover Trials weapons, and don't be surprised if some of these actually make their way to Destiny 2. Blind Perdition was a pulse rifle that came out in Rise of Iron. If you were lucky enough to get the Adept version of this weapon, then it would actually come with Snapshot intrinsically. Again, from Rise of Iron, we have the Vision Stone. This was a kinetic auto rifle with a magazine of 37. Moving on, we have Exile's Student. Just like the last two weapons, if you got the Adept version of the Exile Student, it would actually come with Snapshot intrinsically. This was a really fun hand cannon because it could roll with both explosive rounds and Firefly. Finally, we've got another pulse rifle, this time the Reflection Sum. If you were lucky enough to get the Adept version of this weapon, you would actually get a perk called Last Resort. This was essentially the Destiny 1 version of Celerity. Anyway, there's loads more Trials weapons I have got to get through, but thank you so much for watching and goodbye. Okay, I get it, people want to see more Trials weapons, but I am just going to say at the start here, I will get round to everything, so don't panic if your weapon isn't in this video. The Water Star is a Taken King Trials hand cannon. With the right roll, this weapon could be really strong, and it's also worth noting you could actually get an Adept version of this. Next up, we've got the Inward Lamp Scout Rifle. Having full auto on this weapon made it much easier to use, and if you were trying to use this for PvE, synergizing with Zen Moment and Triple Tap was actually a pretty good bet. The Burning Eye was a scout rifle that came out in Rise of Iron, and the Adept version of this weapon could also have Snapshot intrinsically. Finally, my favourite weapon on this list, we have the Doctrine of Passing. This high rate of fire auto rifle was really good in PvP, and with the right perks, this thing could be an absolute beast. It's worth noting the Adept version of this weapon would have Last Resort intrinsically. This perk would allow your weapon to handle and reload faster if you were the last living player on your team. Anyway, thank you for watching and goodbye. Today we're going to be covering class-specific legendaries from the Gunsmith. Now these were borderlining on being exotic as they did have completely unique perks. For the Warlock we had a fusion rifle called the Susanoo. Elemental Transfusion allowed you to change the element of this weapon by simply dealing damage with your subclass abilities. Essentially, depending on the element of your subclass, dealing damage with your abilities would change the elemental damage type of this weapon to the same as your subclass. Next up, the Titans got a shotgun called Immobius. The unique perk on this weapon would allow kills inside inside of your Ward of Dawn with Armor of Light to just not use ammo whatsoever. So essentially, this meant you could throw down a bubble, and as long as you're inside of it, you wouldn't actually use ammo on this weapon, which was really cool. Finally, the Hunter's got a sniper rifle called the Still Piercer. When you had this sniper rifle equipped, the unique perk would allow it to increase your radar's resolution. Honestly, not as good as the other two, but it's still a pretty cool looking weapon. I just want to thank Spectre and also Technomatrix for the gameplay. Anyway, thank you for watching and goodbye. We're going to start looking at some faction legendaries, so today we're going to start off with New Monarchy. Starting off, we've got the Vanquisher. Now this was a legendary auto rifle that could roll with the perk Persistence. This allowed the weapon to be more accurate the longer it was fired, and this worked really well with glass half full. Next up, we've got the New Monarchy rocket launcher, the Admonisher. Now, I completely forgot about this perk, but this rocket launcher could actually roll with a perk called Tripod. This allowed the rocket launcher to hold 3 shells at once. Moving on, we've got a hand cannon called the Red Hand. This was a kinetic hand cannon with a magazine of 10, and with the right roll, this thing could actually be pretty good. Last but definitely not least, we have the Judgment Shotgun. Again, I completely forgot about this perk, but Final Round allowed the last bullet in the magazine to deal bonus damage, and this could actually roll on this shotgun. Anyway, I will get around to future War Cult and also Dead Orbit, but thank you for watching and goodbye. Welcome back. Today we're going to be covering Dead Orbit's legendary faction weapons. First up, we have the Final Rest fusion rifle, and you can actually get rangefinder and hidden hand on this weapon, making it an absolute beast in PvP. Next up, we have Defiant Gravity A. This weapon could actually roll with a perk called Skip Rounds. Now this was essentially ricochet rounds, but it would also allow you to carry more reserves and it would slow you down. Moving on, we have a shotgun called the Hide and Seek 42. As you can imagine, this was a pretty good bit of kit and it could roll with some pretty cool perks. At this point, I could probably do a whole video on just Destiny 1 perks. This weapon could roll with Performance Bonus. Kills with the weapon would have a chance to grant bonus reserve ammo. At the end here, we have an auto rifle called the Unwilling Soul. Again, since auto rifles were so much better in Destiny 1, this thing was really good for PvP and even PvE with the right roll. Anyway, what do you think to these weapons? Next up, we're going to cover Future War Cult. In terms of Destiny 1 Future War Cult weapons, we first have the Fulcrum. This was a pretty nice all-round kinetic hand cannon, and I also quite like the look of this weapon. Next up, we have the Chosen Sniper Rifle. This weapon could actually get a short gaze sight and also snapshot, making it really good in PvP. Then we have the Villainy, and if you look close enough at this weapon model, you'll probably realise this looks identical to the Redrix's Broadsword and Redrix's Claymore. Unfortunately, you couldn't get Desperado on this weapon, but you could get Headseeker, which was pretty good in Destiny 1. Then finally, we have another kinetic hand cannon. This time it's called the Chance. And I have just checked, and yes, you can get Look in the Chamber on this weapon. I think it would be a bit of a disservice to the name if you couldn't. Anyway, thank you for watching, and goodbye. Today, we're going to be looking at some Destiny 1 Crucible weapons. First up, we have the final boss, and as you're seeing from this gameplay, this thing was absolutely insane in PvP. You could get Snapshot, a short gaze scope, and you could also get the Unflinching perk. Next up, we have the Cryptic Dragon. This was a great workhorse weapon for PvE, and it could roll with some fan favourite perks like Firefly, Outlaw, and also explosive rounds. For the people was a kinetic auto rifle.
And we give it back to you, the people.
So this weapon could roll with Persistence and also glass half full. Finally, we've got the Lowdown, which was another kinetic auto rifle. Anyway, at the end of the video here, I just wanted to say thank you for 6,000 subscribers. The channel is growing really fast, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the older Iron Banner weapons from Destiny 1. Aphrodite Spear was a pretty good all-round PvP Iron Banner sniper rifle. Next up, we've got Radagast's Fury, and this made me realise how strong rocket launchers actually were in PvP. There was a perk called Grenades and Horseshoes, and this would allow your rockets to detonate early based on the proximity of the target, which made rocket launchers really strong. Then we've got the Iron Banner hand cannon Timur's Lash, and this could roll with the Destiny 1 equivalent of Kill Clip, which was called Reactive Reloader. Finally, I know a lot of people liked this weapon, we've got the Scory's Revenge. Now this was the Iron Banner Pulse Rifle. I apologise in advance if I do butcher any of the names of these weapons. Gillian's Demise was the Iron Banner Scout Rifle, and this could roll with some pretty cool perks. Next up, we've got Silimar's Wrath. This was a high rate of fire legendary auto rifle, and it was actually pretty good in the Crucible just because auto rifles were quite strong when these weapons were available. Then we've got the Iron Reef D sidearm. So when this thing first came out, sidearms were still a fairly new weapon archetype, but I still had fun pairing this with a sniper. Then finally, at the end here, we've got the Yolda's Hammer heavy machine gun. Haven't really got much to say about this one. Standard machine gun, pretty good bit of kit. Anyway, thank you for watching and goodbye. Today we're going to be talking about some weapons from the original Prison of Elders. It's worth mentioning at the start here, the Fallen themed weapons on this list could actually get random bonuses towards fallen enemies. Starting off, we have a legendary hand cannon called the Six Dreg Pride. Next up, we have an auto rifle called the Wolf Slayer's Claw. It's actually quite refreshing to look at a unique design of weapon, as I've been going over Year 1 Destiny 1 weapons and a lot of them are just reskins, so this is actually pretty cool design here. Then we have a sniper rifle called Shadow of the Veils. Occasionally, Variks would sell this item and you could also get it as a reward from Prison of Elders. Finally, we have this sort of Queen's themed scout rifle, and you could actually get it from a quest and it would also drop from the Prison of Elders. This was a pretty average scout rifle, but it can actually roll the perk called Replenish. This would refill the magazine whenever you casted your super. Anyway, thank you for watching and goodbye. Welcome back. Today we're going to be covering some Destiny 1 legendary Vanguard weapons. The Comedian was a shotgun that could actually roll with shot package. This would reduce the spread of your projectiles after aiming the weapon. Next up, we have a really fun sniper called the LDR. Now I know a lot of people wanted to see this thing, so here it is. What makes this weapon good is it actually has a really nice perk pool. You could get snapshot, you could get unflinching, and you could also get a short gaze scope on this weapon, meaning it was very fun in PvP. Time on Target is a legendary pulse rifle that was added in the Dark Below expansion. Nothing too special here, but it does have quite a nice perk pool. Finally, we've got the Devil You Know, not to be confused with the Devil You Don't. This hand cannon was actually pretty fun and it could roll with some fun perks like Look in the Chamber and also explosive rounds. But apart from that guys, I've just made a Twitter, so that's going to be in the description, but thank you for watching and goodbye. Welcome back. Today we're going to be covering some Year 3 Iron Banner weapons. There's a lot of highly requested weapons on this list. First up, we've got the Clever Dragon. Now this was absolutely phenomenal in PvP and probably one of my favourite pulse rifles in the game. To mention a few perks on this weapon, you could get Headseeker, Rangefinder, Snapshot, Unflinching, basically all of the fan favourite perks here. Next up, we've got the Branded Lord Fusion Rifle. I do just want to mention here, you could get these weapons from other sources, they didn't just come from Iron Banner. For example, you could actually get them from just playing Rise of Iron activities. Moving on, we've got the Laughing Heart Sniper Rifle. Again, I love the designs of these weapons and this thing is no exception. Moving on, we have the Unbent Tree Auto Rifle. Now this thing looks like it doubles up as also some sort of axe, so missed opportunity for a melee weapon there, Bungie. To be fair, it would be cool if you could melee with weapons, like think about Monte Carlo and Red Death. Finally, we've got the Proud Spire Shotgun. Not quite a Fell Winters, but still a good bit of kit. Anyway, thank you for watching and goodbye. Today we're going to be covering some Vanguard weapons and I really want to know who named these weapons, and I also really hope it was the same person. Not like the others was a kinetic scout rifle, and ironically it actually had a mediocre perk pool, but I will give it some credit because it could roll with bonuses against certain enemies. Next up we have the Unfriendly Giant, and this thing could roll with tracking and it could also be sold by the Vanguard Quartermaster. Moving on, we have the Up for Anything, and just like the name suggests, this is a pretty well-rounded auto rifle. Finally, we have a Vanguard Rise of Iron sniper rifle called the Seventh Sense. The name of this weapon could be a reference to a couple of things. Obviously, we have the movie The Sixth Sense by M. Night Shyamalan, but it could also be something to do with Bungie's obsession with sevens.
7th day, 7th month, 7th column.
Some honourable mentions for weapons that I like the names of that aren't actually legendary are the Heaven Can Wait hand cannon and also the Big Rig XXL rocket launcher. No idea how they got away with that one. Anyway guys, thank you for watching and goodbye. Right, we're going to cover some more Vanguard weapons. First up, we have the Payback SOS. This was your typical legendary Vanguard auto rifle. Also, let me know in the comments if you recognise this mission on screen. Next up, we have the Secret Handshake. This was a shotgun that came out in the Dark Below, and a lot of players love this weapon, and it's actually really good in PvP. Then, we've got the Light/Beware Fusion Rifle, and I had no idea you can actually get skip rounds to roll on fusion rifles. This would allow your bullets to ricochet off surfaces, but you could get it on this fusion rifle, so I assume you would actually have your fusion rifle bolt, bounce around corners, a little bit like the hard light, so that's pretty cool. Finally, at the end here, we've got another kinetic auto rifle, this time the Dr. Nope. So this weapon could actually roll with 10 different sights, which is pretty cool in itself, but it also has a pretty nice perk pool. Some highlights that you may not recognise are reactive reload, spray and pray, and also single point sling. Anyway, big thank you to everyone who's followed me on Twitter, and also the people who've joined my Discord. One last thing, I don't know how many of you are following the Vendor Hunger Games, but if you go to the community tab on my channel, you can go and vote in that. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about some highly requested Crucible weapons. The last extremity was an Omelon legendary scout rifle. Also, scout rifles were really fun in combined arms. Next up we have the
Cowboy one.
Right, so this weapon could roll with a pretty cool perk called Army of One. Quick, unassisted kills with the weapon would reduce your grenade and melee cooldown. Then we have a fan favourite, the Hacksaw. This Soros Crucible pulse rifle was phenomenal in PvP. Now obviously, this thing could roll with some great perks, and it's also worth noting you could actually buy it from the Crucible Quartermaster. Next up, we've got the Havoc Pigeon sidearm. Just by looking at the weapon, you can notice it has a suppressor. Now, in my opinion, this has always been a missed opportunity by Bungo. I think it would be so cool to have some sort of stealth perk built around suppressors. Just think about column 2 perks. Ricochet rounds and high caliber rounds are normally your best pick, and I think it would be nice to have some more variation. With that being said, thank you for all the support on my every single strike in Destiny video. That did take a while, but it's had a really nice reception, and I really appreciate you guys for that, so thank you so much, and goodbye. Welcome back. Today we're going to be covering some more Crucible weapons. Starting off, we have the Byronic Hero. This kinetic hand cannon was actually pretty good, and it could roll with some fun perks like Look in the Chamber, Mulligan, and also Reactive Reload. Next up, we have a kinetic auto rifle called the Do-Gooder 5. A cool thing about this weapon, and also a lot of weapons in Destiny 1, was you could actually roll with so many different sights. This weapon specifically could actually roll with 10 different sights. Moving on, we have a Deal Breaker auto rifle, and this could actually roll with a pretty cool perk called Relentless Tracker. This would allow kills with the weapon to grant you an enhanced motion tracker. Finally, at the end here, we have the Ruin Wake Heavy Machine Gun. This thing could roll with essentially the Destiny 1 version of Rampage. Crowd control allowed kills with the weapon to grant you bonus damage for a short time. With all of that being said, thank you for watching. Welcome back to the channel. At the start here, I just want to say we're really close to 10k, so any subscriptions are really appreciated. Without further ado, the Soros PDX-45 was a legendary pulse rifle. There was a time when this thing was amazing in PvP, and it could also roll with a pretty interesting perk. So essentially, Secret Round would allow missing a shot from this weapon's burst to fire a 4th shot. Next up, we have a legendary hand cannon called Lord High Fixer. A couple of people have requested this weapon, and I actually used to be a big fan of it. I think I had a roll with Look in the Chamber. Moving on, we have what some people may consider the best pulse rifle from Destiny 1, the Grasp of Malok. This weapon had great base stats, and it could also roll with some amazing perks like Outlaw, Headseeker, and Rangefinder. You actually got this weapon from the Will of Crota strike, and if you're more interested on strikes, I actually have a video on the channel which covers every single strike in Destiny 1. Finally, we have the legendary auto rifle, the Grim Citizen. With that being said, I just want to say thank you for all the support on the channel. It's actually insane, we're nearly at 10k already. First up today, we have the Matador 64 shotgun. This was one of my favourite shotguns in PvP, and it can actually roll with some really powerful perks. Rangefinder would just increase your range after aiming the weapon, and then final round would increase the damage of the last bullet in your magazine. Next up, we actually have the Longbow Synthesis. This thing was actually a reward at the end of Crucible matches, and I kind of want them to bring back the whole end screen thing where you got your random reward in the little slots. I really enjoyed that final screen at the end of matches. Something wicked was a Rise of Iron rocket launcher, and this could roll with all of your classic Destiny 1 rocket launcher perks. Cluster bomb, grenades and horseshoes, tracking, and also tripod. And finally, we have a weapon that a lot of people have been suggesting. This is the B29 Party Favor. This thing could roll with Secret Round and also Rodeo, which would literally just reduce the amount of recoil on the weapon. Anyway, I have actually just made a Twitter, so if anybody's interested in that, it'll be in the description. But apart from that, thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Hi guys, Basil here. The Nation 3 is a legendary dead orbit hand cannon. This could roll with my personal favourite perk, explosive rounds. Next we've got the Crusader scout rifle. This could roll with a pretty low-key perk, custom optics. I mean, all this would do is just increase the zoom of the weapon. Next up, we've got the big boy Cure, the big old rocket launcher. This could roll with Who's Next. This would increase reload speed if you got a kill with the final round. Now finally, we've got my favourite weapon of the list, the Dry Rot 32. This thing was fantastic in PvE because you could roll it with full auto.
With that being said, thank you so much for 9,000 subscribers, and goodbye. Right, I'm really starting to debate the name of this series because today we have some absolute bangers. The 1,000-yard stare was a phenomenal, dare I say perfect PvP sniper. This thing could roll with unflinching, hidden hand, snapshot, a short gaze sight, pretty much everything you would want on a PvP weapon. Next up, another highly requested weapon, we have the Hopscotch Pilgrim. Again, really nice perk pool, fantastic stats, and it just gets the job done. Moving on, an iconic shotgun, we have the Party Crasher +1. I know a lot of people love this weapon and a lot of people hate this weapon, but love it or hate it, this thing was absolutely amazing in PvP. Finally, a pulse rifle I somehow forgot in the Iron Banner episode, we have the Nerwin's Mercy. Again, this was a fantastic kinetic pulse rifle. With that being said, we're coming up to 10k, so a Doom trailer will be released, I will be live streaming, and also, if you're lucky, we might get a cooking video. Welcome back to another episode of Forgotten Legendaries. Today we're going to be starting out with the Angel's Advocate Scout Rifle. A lot of people used to love this scout rifle, and a thing I appreciated about it was the fact it could roll with some pretty nice looking sights. Moving on, we have the Vanguard Legendary Auto Rifle Questing Beast. This could roll with all of your typical auto rifle perks, but it could also roll with specific bonuses against certain enemies. If you want to learn more about these perks, then I have a video on the channel. Another NITC is a Vanguard fan favorite scout rifle. This thing could actually roll with one of the perks from the Destiny 1 Hawkmoon. Look in the chamber would allow one random bullet from the magazine to deal bonus damage. Finally, at the end here, we have the Hard Look Charm. I will just say, I do really like the design of this thing. It's very basic and it's just got red and black, and that actually works really well. It's worth noting, getting full auto on this weapon would actually increase its rate of fire as well as allowing it to fire fully automatic. With all of that being said, thank you to everyone who tuned into the stream yesterday, and I also want to say thank you so much for 10,000 subscribers. Welcome back. Today we're going to be covering legendary swords, and I actually had no idea inside of Destiny 1 there was actually 7 legendary swords. First up, we've got a very highly requested sword. This is the Dreadfang. This sword had tempered light, increased armor while wielding this weapon. It's worth noting Dreadfang would also deal increased damage to Taken enemies. I really love the design of the Taken weapons, and I would really like them to bring back almost this Taken aesthetic. Moving on, we have the Arc Edge, Solar Edge, and also Void Edge. These are the legendary variants of their exotic counterparts. I haven't really got much to say about these swords. They were very basic, even more basic than a rare sword from Destiny 2, as they didn't actually have a heavy attack. Now, I didn't even know these last 3 swords existed. Essentially, in Destiny 1 Taken King, we had a program called Refer a Friend. This was made to incentivize new players to join Destiny with their friends. If you did actually complete the Tale of Two Guardians quest, you could actually earn the Void, Arc, and Solar Infinite Edge swords. Now, these things were pretty much exactly the same as the Edge swords, only they looked slightly different. Hello and welcome to episode 26 of Forgotten Legendaries. Today, we're going to start out by talking about the Stolen Will shotgun. This was a strike-specific Taken shotgun, and if you want to know more about strike-specific weapons, then I do have a whole video on every single Destiny 1 strike. Moving on, we have the first rule DHYB auto rifle. This weapon could actually roll with some pretty nice auto rifle perks. We have glass half full, persistence, and also rangefinder. Moving on, we have the Loner Rebel hand cannon. You could get this from strikes, and it could also drop as a reward from the Prison of Elders. Again, this weapon could roll with some great perks. We have Look in the Chamber, Outlaw, and also explosive rounds. Finally, a very highly requested weapon, we have the Stranger's Rifle. Now, if this weapon looks familiar, it's because it looks a lot like the No Time to Explain exotic. This pulse rifle was actually given to you by the Stranger at the end of the Destiny 1 campaign. Anyway guys, the channel is blowing up, so I just want to say thank you so much. I think we're 11,000 subscribers now. Today, we're going to be covering some legendary sidearms from Destiny 1. First up, we have the Teacup Tempest. This Vanguard sidearm came out in Rise of Iron, and you could actually buy it from the Vanguard Quartermaster. Next up, we have the Queen's Choice. Now this shares a resemblance with the Vestian Dynasty, but this would actually drop from Challenge of Elders. Another cool thing about this weapon was you could actually customize it with chroma. Again, dropping from Prison of Elders and Challenge of Elders, we have the Crow's Eye sidearm. This weapon could roll with reactive reload and also crowd control. It's also worth noting you could actually get chroma on this weapon as well. Finally, we have the Jabba Hake D. This was a Taken King Vanguard sidearm. Anyway guys, this series is going to be coming to a close, so please comment any weapons you would like to see, but apart from that, thank you so much for all the support. Fair and Square was a legendary kinetic pulse rifle that you could actually buy from the Crucible Quartermaster. Moving on, we have Strongbow D, not to be confused with the popular Cider, this is actually a shotgun. We then have the Wolfsbane machine gun with the Queen styling, but this weapon actually dropped from the Prison of Elders. Finally, we have the Taken King New Monarchy shotgun Burden of Proof 11. A fun fact about this weapon was it could actually roll with shot package before it was patched out. Anyway guys, thank you so much for 12,000 subscribers. You're going to have to bear with me because 11,000 of you have only just came in the last 3 weeks, so thank you so much for watching and goodbye. First up today we have a legendary shotgun called In Times of Need. You can actually get this weapon from Crimson Doubles all the way back in 2016, but you can also get it as a Crucible match reward. Next up we have the Revelator hand cannon. This weapon could roll with some classic Destiny 1 perks. We've got Look in the Chamber, Army of One, and also reactive reload. Moving on, we have a fan favorite machine gun, the Zombie Apocalypse. This was one of my favorite favourite machine guns in Destiny 1, and I wouldn't be surprised if they actually brought this thing back to Destiny 2. And finally, we have the Superpox VLO. This weapon had a pretty nice perk pool, and you could get some classics like Headseeker, Secret Round, and also Rangefinder. With that all being said, I've got a Discord, Twitter, and TikTok in the description, but otherwise, thank you for watching, and goodbye. Since we are at episode 30, I thought I'd cover some very highly requested weapons. First up, we have the Satyrian Rapier Scout Rifle. This weapon could roll with some fantastic perks. We've got Luck in the Chamber, Outlaw, Who's Next, and also Explosive Rounds. Moving on, we have the Kinetic Taken King Vanguard Auto Rifle and Answering Chord. Again, great perks, and I completely understand why some people absolutely adored this weapon. Then we have Red Spectre, which is clearly drawing some inspiration from its big brother, although this was actually an auto rifle, not a pulse rifle. Some perk highlights here would be Persistence, Focus Fire, Crowd Control, and also Spray and Play. Finally, we have the Murmur Fusion Rifle. This weapon was actually quite unique because you could choose between arc and solar damage. In any case, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who has watched this series all the way up to episode 30. With that all being said, thank you so much and goodbye.